Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Today we're talking about what I think is probably the best 80 points you can spend in your list in Age of Sigmar 3. So, the Skink Priest. He went up 10 points, but he has actually gotten quite a bit better in this new edition. So, we're going to take a look at that and what we can use him for in Age of Sigmar 3. But let's not joke around or anything. Let's just get right into it. Upsides, and then we'll get into all the details. Upsides, same great abilities as he's had previously. You know, you've used the Skink Priest to buff a ton of stuff in our army, all the skink stuff. Now he can do some other things, but he still has all those same great abilities that the Skink Priest has had previously. We also have access to prayers now. This is a priest, and he doesn't have a prayer. And so that provides some interesting things to do with this Skink Priest. And now that we have some generic prayers and some universal prayers, we can also dispel endless spells with priests now. Okay, so now if you don't want to bring a wizard, just bring some Skink Priests, and you still have an access to dispel endless spells. You can also dispel invocations with a Skink Priest. Invocations are basically the endless spells that are prayers for some factions. Another upside is we can activate the Realm Shaper with the Skink Priest. We've always been able to do that, but now the Realm Shaper is better, and you're actually going to want to bring it in your army. And so you'll see the Realm Shaper actually on the table. Skink Priest is great to put in to the Realm Shaper engine. A huge upside is that a Skink Priest fills out the Warlord battalion. We'll get into that when we look at the battalions, but you need some small foot heroes to fit into that Warlord battalion so that you can get access to extra enhancements. And so these guys fill that role. They're cheap, they're useful, they're perfect for that Warlord battalion. Downsides, they went up 10 points. I mean, I had to figure out something for downsides. It went up 10 points, but that's not that much compared to everything else. It's about average. I think it's slightly more than average. You know, the average was about 10%. So it went up 10 points from 70 to 80. Still very cheap. There's not a lot of heroes in Age of Sigmar 3 that are 80 points. The biggest downside is very fragile. 4 wounds on a 5-up save. And there's extra ways to kill priests now. And so you'll see these guys get sniped off even more so now. So very fragile, which might, if you're counting on it for your list, you might want to bring 2. So that's our overview. Now we'll get into the gritty details. So let's look at the Warscroll here. We're going to skip all the missiles and melee weapons because those things are pretty much useless. You're never going to count on those. You're there for the buffs. But of note, the Skink Priest does have an 8-inch move, a 4 wounds, ouch, a 5-up save. So this is a very weak hero. This is, a just snipe the heroes type of hero. People are going to be gunning for him. 6 bravery, which if you're taking a Skink Priest in Starborn, so like Fangs of Sotek, Draco's Tail, that bravery is going to go up to 10, which means you will be able to do the heroic recovery so that you can heal. But if you're taking the Skink Priest in Coalesced, that bravery kind of hurts there because you're not going to be able to heal the Skink Priest using those heroic abilities. Just to point that out while we're talking about the bravery. The real strength of this Warscroll, though, comes with its buffs. So we'll zoom in on the abilities here. Now, if you look up this Warscroll in the app, the current app, it says minion abilities for its first one. I don't know where they got that minion from because if you download the official app, it does say just abilities. The great thing is, though, this is a priest, and this is not a prayer. So you would think that this ability here would be a prayer because it's worded like a prayer. It kind of acts like a prayer, but it's not currently. So if this Warscroll ever gets updated, I bet you we see this change into a prayer. But as it is now, it's just an ability. And so in your hero phase, you pick 1 friendly skink unit wholly within 12 of this model and roll a dice on a 3-up. Until your next hero phase, that unit can run and still shoot or charge in the same turn, and you can add 1 to save rolls that attack that target. That is amazing. So we've talked about this before. If you've seen the last video on the Skink Priest back in the previous edition, this guy's buffs are crazy. So all those buffs from just that 1 3-up save, or 3-up roll. You get run and shoot, run and charge, +1 to saves. Amazing. And previously you could kind of stack this on top of skinks. You're going to want to take this with your skink hordes anyway. And you could really buff those saves for the skinks. Now you can't quite buff those saves as much, but it still helps, especially if you're being attacked with rend. It can, in effect, negate rend the more saves you have, or the more, the lower you can stack your save. But this is great for any skink unit. So that includes half our army. It's anything from stegodons to pterodons to bastillodons to skinks, chameleon skinks. A lot of stuff has that skink keyword, and so they can take these buffs. Fantastic buff ability. Also, the command ability here, Herald of the Old Ones, and we're looking at, you pick one unit, one friendly skink unit within 18, and until your next hero phase, you add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit. Now, this is interesting because previously you would use this sometimes if you knew that you were going to be shooting with something, if you knew you were going to be hitting with those skink hordes. But this command ability goes in the hero phase, not in any specific phase. So this gets really interesting in Age of Sigmar 3 because you can only use one command ability on a unit per phase. Well, you can use this one in the hero phase. So if you need to stack this on something that you want to give +1 to hit for, and then you're going to use your all-out attack on a different unit for another +1 to hit, you can. And so you can strategically stack those buffs. If you need to get past a -1 to hit, you can put this in the hero phase, and then in your shooting or combat phase, you add another +1. And so that way you can get past a -1 to hit and still get your +1 to hit after they balance out. So a great ability here, especially with how command abilities work in Age of Sigmar 3. You're looking for things that will last from one phase to the other so that you can still have room to stack more command points in different phases onto those units. So a very, very good abilities here. It is a Skink Priest, so that word is key. And in Age of Sigmar 3, we have some new priest rules. And so this section 20 of the GHB for 2021, talks about the priests and what they get. And so it talks a little bit about how you're chanting for your prayers. You pick those roles. You look at what's on the Warscroll, yada, yada, yada. 20.1.1 is basically your miscast for prayers. You have, if on your prayer roll you roll a 1, your cast or your priest takes a mortal wound. It may not seem like a lot, but when you're talking about a priest that only has 4 wounds, that means every single wound hurts. And so this priest here, I guarantee you're going to end up killing your priest sometime on a prayer that gets miscast there. Because let's say they've taken D3 wounds in some other phase, now you're casting and you miscast and you roll a 1, poof. So that one does hurt, especially when you only have 4 wounds on a model. But it does have some risk to your prayers, so it is kind of nice. Anything else in this section? I don't think so. It talks about how priests will know all their prayers on their Warscroll, which we don't have any on this Warscroll. We don't have any prayers, so we don't have to worry about that. There are some generic prayers, and so these are what you're going to be praying for a lot with this priest. And so the generic ones are bless. This is kind of like your Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt for wizards. So prayers, you have bless. This has a answer value of 4, so you have to roll a 4 or higher, and a range of 12. If answer, pick one friendly unit wholly within range and visible to the chanter until the start of your next hero phase. That unit has a ward of 6 up. And so this is nice. It gives units a ward save. And so a lot of our stuff doesn't have ward saves. We have access to a ward save with Croak on that hero, and also with the Astrolith Banner Bearer, but not a lot of other ward saves. We might be looking at some for an artifact or something, but this gives us an actual ability to give a ward save to units. So putting this on a big unit of skinks, 30 skinks, a 6-up ward save makes them a little bit tougher. putting this on a Stegodon or a Bastiladon makes them just a little bit tougher, makes them harder to go down. So this is very useful. You'll be using this if you don't have any other prayer that you're wanting to cast on. Bless one of your units and make them a little bit harder to kill. Smite. I think this one you're going to be seeing quite a lot of, I think. Smite is a prayer that has an answer value of 2. So as long as you don't roll a 1, you can smite. And a range of 48 inches. Now, in Age of Sigmar 3 terminology, 48 inches is nearly board wide. I mean, if you're set up in the middle, if you're set up like anywhere close to the deployment line, you're going to hit the entire board. So if answered, pick one friendly priest or one enemy priest within range and visible to the chanter. That enemy priest suffers 1 mortal wound. If the chanting roll was 6 or more, that enemy priest suffers D3 mortal wounds instead of 1. And so you have a way to do some chip damage. And so you know that our army has a lot of abilities to like plink mortals different places. And so this is an extra way that you can help finish off that hero if you need to. It's on a 2-up. You need to do 1 mortal to a priest unit to finish off their priests. Have at it with this. Unfortunately, we'll probably also lose quite a few Skink Priests to this smite because we only have 4 wounds and these guys are pretty weak. And so we will probably be smited quite a bit with this prayer onto our Skink Priest. So goes both ways, but a great way to actually put out some extra damage. So this part is a little bit more controversial, I think. So let's look at enhancements. This section, there's been a lot of talk about how this section is not written very well. And so I want to highlight a couple things here and tell you what I think it means until we see like an FAQ on it to further explain it. Maybe we just have to all disagree. But so this says, enhancements are divided into these different categories here at the top. This is what it's talking about, these different categories of enhancements that you have. Now, a lot of those you see in your allegiance abilities. And so you have specific ones for your army, like your command trait. So if you're in Thunder Lizards, you have to take the enhancement command trait of Prime War Beast. So that's what that first section is talking about. You have to take these here. The next section, enhancements, are picked after you've chosen the battalions for your army. You can always take 1 enhancement of each type for your army. And the battalions or battle pack you are using may allow you to take additional enhancements for your army. I'm reading this as I take 1 enhancement for of each type. So I need to take a prayer scripture enhancement. Is the way I'm reading it. Unless there's another way, because I've seen a lot of people if you're saying I'm taking this priest and I'm going to include a universal prayer scripture because I get to take a prayer scripture. That's how I'm reading it. Maybe I'm wrong. Set me straight below, but it to me it says you always take 1 enhancement of each type for your army. So I'm taking a prayer scripture, and I'm looking at the prayer scriptures because we don't have our own prayer lore in Seraphon. Maybe that's why we're getting around this. But heal is a fantastic prayer scripture. Heal is answer value of 3 and a range of 12. If answered, you pick 1 friendly model within range and visible to the chanter. You can heal D3 wounds allocated to that model. This is great. This gives us an extra ability to heal. We have the heroic recovery that gives us an ability to heal. We have this prayer that gives us an ability to heal. And we have a spell from Croak that gives us an ability, or not from Krug, but from any Slon, that can heal 1 or D3, and throw in Life Swarm if you need it. There are lots of ways for our army to heal things up. So you're going to want to take advantage of that while you're trying to heal up your important pieces. The other universal prayer scripture is Curse. This one is incredibly powerful, but very situational. So Curse is a prayer that has an answer value of 4. So remember that 4. You got to roll a 4 or higher. So you're going to fail this half the time. You're going to succeed half the time. It has a range of 9. Very short range here. Especially because you have to pick an enemy unit within range and visible to the chanter. Until your next hero phase, if the unmodified hit roll for an attack that targets that unit is 6, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. So if you're putting this on, like, if you can line this up with a unit of skinks, you're going to do some crazy massive damage because you're going to be rolling 60 dice and you're going to be doing 10 mortals on the hits. So that's in addition. then you're going to roll, all those wound rolls and probably do mortals there too. So if you can line this up, it's incredibly powerful. Unfortunately, these guys are probably not going to live long enough to get within 9, and so it makes it very difficult to get that off. I tend to side with heal as my enhancement. That my one enhancement I have to pick for each of each type, and so I do like the heal. It gives me a little bit more utility. I can use that a lot more to heal things up as they're getting damaged. Let's look at. Oh, I think I mentioned this before, but banishing invocations. So you can get rid of those invocations, which are those endless prayers, I guess you call them. It's you pick one within 48 inches, so huge range again, and you make a banishment roll. As long as you roll greater than whatever that their prayer value is for that invocation, it's gone. So this is nice. This gets you. This is a way to get rid of like the corn endless prayers and the Fire Slayers ones. I'm sure there's more. Can't think of them off the top of my head. But previously there was no interaction with those. Now we have a way to get rid of those. Dispelling endless spells. Again, a priest can now dispel an endless spell. So it does cost your prayer roll for each one of these. You won't get to do your prayer roll. But a lot of times we're not doing our prayer roll anyway with the Skink Priest unless we need to heal, because his abilities are on that ability, not on a prayer, and so that kind of makes him unique. Dispelling for the endless spell is kind of how it works for a wizard too, so but gives them some good utility. This next slide, I brought up the battalions because I wanted to hit specifically on the Warlord battalion. I think that's a battalion you're going to see probably the most because it gives you the extra enhancement. I think that's what that one was. That was really hard to circle there. This battalion gives you the extra enhancement. So you're going to want to do that so that you can get access to those artifacts. The artifacts are great, especially that amulet, which gives you a 5-up ward save. You're going to want that on your big monsters. And so you want access to this Warlord battalion. And to do that, you have to take 2 of these less than 10 wound heroes. So they, foot heroes usually. And so we don't have, especially, on the Saurus side, you're not running a whole lot of foot heroes. On the Skink side, you usually have a lot more foot heroes on the board between Skink Priests and Skink Star Priests. But even in something like Thunder Lizards, I'm looking at this Warlord battalion because I want that extra artifact. And so Skink Priests are a super cheap way to get access to that. 80 points each, so 160 points. And you've got an extra artifact. It's basically your battalion tax from previous edition. But these guys give you a lot of extra juice there. They have a lot of utility. But you definitely want access to those foot heroes so that you can get this extra battalion, so you can get the extra artifact. So keep that in mind as you're building your Warlord. These guys are the cheapest way to get access to that Warlord battalion and get your 2 foot heroes in there. What units can the Skink Priest buffs? I think we talked about that already. A ton of basically everything on the Skink side, and the Priest stuff can buff things on the Saurus side as well. There is an interesting, I wanted to hit on this. I think I had this slide in the AOS 2 review of Skink Priest, but this command trait that we have, a Skink command trait, I bring it up because it does have the Herald of the Old Ones referenced here. And if you take this command trait, so if you can get out of your command trait for your subfaction, if you take this command trait and the person's not the hero you're giving to is not a wizard, they can use this Herald of the Old Ones command ability from the Skink Priest Warscroll without a command point being spent. So that's nice. Command points are a resource that we need to manage. So this lets you have a free ability without using it. So that basically gives your Skink unit a +1 to hit. And so that is good. It happens in the hero phase. You can use it there. But I don't think, I used to be able to double tap this. So you could spend, if you would make like your Skink Priest your general, which I did occasionally, especially if you're taking Croak and you needed somebody else to be your general, you could spend Herald of the Old Ones on one unit with the command point and then use this for no command point on another unit. And so that was always nice. But now, I think because of the way this is worded, it says you can use that command ability, but it doesn't cost you. So you're still using it. And I think that will negate us from being able to use it again, because you can only issue a command ability once per phase from a hero to another unit. And so not quite as useful, but if for some reason you want that access to that +1 to hit, you can get it with this command trait. Another thing I wanted to focus on was the Realm Shaper engine. Let me remove my marks from the screen. Because I think I'm going to be deploying my Skink Priest in the Realm Shaper engine quite a bit. So now the Realm Shaper engine has been fixed in the FAQ for Seraphon. And you put it up wholly within your territory here. And more than 3 inches from all objectives and other terrain features. So this is nice. This is actually usable now. So we will see this Realm Shaper engine deployed on the table. I'm gonna bring mine to every game if I want to put it down. If my deployment isn't helpful, can't think of the word. Conducive. If my deployment zone isn't conducive to putting the Realm Shaper engine down, then I might not. But it's so easy to get this ability now. And so in your hero phase, if you have a wizard or a priest, a Seraphon wizard or priest, then you put those guys in the Realm Shaper engine on deployment, and now you've got access to this pretty cool ability. And basically you're plinking mortal wounds across the board onto enemy terrain. The closer that terrain is, the easier it is to roll for those mortals. And so this priest here, let's say you're smiting, you're doing the power unleashed from the Realm Shaper engine, you're able to plink out some more mortals. You need mortals, you need mortal output in Age of Sigmar 3 because saves are going to be so easily buffed. Mortal wounds are a lot more valuable now. And so Realm Shaper engine with the Skink Priest, I think that's going to be a pretty standard deployment there. Especially if you don't want to stack a whole bunch of stuff in it, plop this guy in there. Now all of a sudden his base is bigger basically, so he can reach his buff further and he can use this ability. Let's talk a little bit about the model. This the Skink Priest is an older model. It still comes in resin. This is a picture of mine here, and it has this. Well, you know what? Let's do a little history lesson. Not a history lesson, but his feathered cloak used to actually have a purpose, and so that feathered cloak was pretty cool. I guess it was at the beginning of Age of Sigmar 2, maybe. There was a great build where you use this little Skink Priest as like a ballistic missile. You could easily send him across the table turn 1, and if you gave him the right artifact, he would blow up a horde. And so I did that a lot, and that was a lot of fun. But you had to have that Cloak of Feathers on the Skink Priest. Now Cloak of Feathers has been taken off of him, apparently, off his Warscroll, and put into an artifact that you can slap on the back of a Stegodon, I guess. But so Cloak of Feathers isn't actually on his Warscroll anymore, which used to be pretty cool. But I still like the model. I think it's still a good-looking model for what it is. I think there are some better Skink Priests that we'll look at here in a second, but it's cheap. It's less than $20 on Games Workshop, so an easy way to get into it. I think if you want a little bit more modern sculpt there are some options. The Starblood Stalkers, the warband for Seraphon, have some great Skink Priests in it. Like this guy here, it literally is a Skink Priest. And so he makes a perfect addition. This guy here, I think he also might make a decent Skink Priest. You just, change the head of this to something, or just, keep it the same. It doesn't really matter. It's a staff. It pretty much looks like a staff. And you could easily run those two as Skink Priests. That'd be an easy way to get two of them. What I've done before is this guy here. I have a lot of Stegodon kits, and I don't build them all as Engine of the Gods. And so this guy right here is a Skink Priest. He's a Skink Priest on the Stegodon, on the Engine of the Gods. So if you're not building your Engine of the Gods, yank that guy off and turn him into a Skink Priest. I've done that a couple times. Here's a picture of one of mine. And that little chair that he sits in up here basically is a 25 millimeter chair. And so it fits great on that 25 millimeter base. and kind of fills it out. So that's what I've done before too. You'll see a lot of people use this rider here from the Troglodyte as their Skink Priests. And I have a couple that I've made like that. I don't like, for some reason, I think that rider is like the weakest part of the Troglodyte. I love the Troglodyte model, but my Troglodyte model, I put like a Skink Star Priest down on the base because I thought that guy looks kind of weird. But hey, you've probably got this guy sitting around on some sprue left over from your start collecting kit, so make him into your Star Priest. It works good. So, all right, this video is getting up there. Upsides again. Hey, Skink Priest is great. 80 points. He fills a lot of roles. He does a lot of things. He fills out your warlord battalion, which is one of the most important things, let's be honest, because you got to get that extra artifact. He can heal things. He can hurt things. He can buff things. A great unit for 80 points. So let me know what you guys are doing with your Skink Priest in the comments below. And do you agree with me? Can a Skink Priest take heal? Since you're allowed to take one enhancement for each of those types, and he doesn't have a normal prayer enhancement. I don't know. Needs an FAQ. All right, guys. Catch you all on the next one.